If I had to start house flipping from scratch, here's exactly what I would do in my first year. I'm gonna walk you through 7 steps based on 15 years of experience and a portfolio that brings me in over $1 million a year in rental revenue. Step number 1 is I would define my buy box. Because just think about this. You go in to buy a truck. Who do you think gets taken more serious? Buyer number 1 who says, I want a Ford F-250. I want the model that's like 2017 to 2020 that has that look. I want it to be an XLT. I want it to have under 100,000 miles, super cab, white. Or do you think car shopper number 2 who says, I want a truck? See, the well-researched buyer you take serious because they have confidence, and confidence equals authority. So here's my F-250 in-house form. Gonna read it off here. First, I'm gonna pick 3 to 5 neighborhoods that I wanna flip in. Okay, I'm not gonna just invest in all of Chattanooga or all of Denver or all of whatever city you're in. 3 to 5 neighborhoods. Neighborhoods aren't zip codes. Done a lot of videos on this. They're census tracts, okay? That's the ultimate neighborhood definition. So get your census tract map out, 3 to 5 neighborhoods. That's what you're gonna focus on and become the authority in those neighborhoods. I'm looking for fixed up houses that will sell for median prices or a bit higher. So here are the median prices around $320,000. I'm not gonna find a house that will have an ARV, after repair value, of more than $400,000. That's too far out. I'm gonna go like 20% at the high end above the median price of $320,000. Okay, that's base hits, win ball games. Not going for the big swings of these A-class properties. Those are the first things that get hit when things go bad in the market. I'm not trying to have that. I can't find contractors that will do as good of work, so I have to work harder at that. And I like to be lazy. In those neighborhoods, I need 3 good comps that have happened in the last 6 months because I need to see action in those neighborhoods. I need to see movement. And I want houses that are within 1,300 to 2,300 square feet. I'm gonna know these 3 to 5 neighborhoods like the frickin' back of my hand. All right, I'm gonna know what's sold, how much it's sold for. I'm gonna know what kind of shape they're in. I wanna know what a comp looks like, what a house that is sold for the highest price point looks like. What kind of countertops did they use? Did they paint with multiple colors? Did they use LVP floors? Was it hardwood? Were the countertops granite? Were they butcher block? What about the bathrooms? What kind of renovations did they do on the shower? Did they do a whole new custom-made shower pan? Or is it just a bathtub with tile around it? Or does it not even have tile? It just has one of those inserts, okay? I wanna know what the baseline is for that neighborhood. I'm looking for construction comps. Okay, so I've built my ARV radar for those 3 to 5 neighborhoods. Now, if somebody calls me and says they have a house in that neighborhood, I don't need to go to my computer and run comps and work out all the numbers because I've already pre-worked them out. I know exactly what I would buy that house for. Oh, how many square feet did you say it was? You said it's 1,000 square feet. Okay, well, I know that houses there sell for $300 a foot, so $300,000. And I know that houses generally in that neighborhood are gonna need about $30,000 worth of work. So if I use the 70% rule, 300,000 times 70%, $210,000 minus the $30,000 renovation, I could probably offer around $180,000 there, right? Didn't need to go run comps. I knew because I know that neighborhood. I know the price per square foot in that neighborhood. Step 2, you ever trade your car in to the dealership? You look at Kelley Blue Book and it says they'll give you $20,000 for it. Then you go to the car dealership and they give you like 12. And then you see them list it at like 25 grand and you're like, what the hell is going on? And then the crazy thing is somebody buys it. All right, but what if instead of going to the dealership, you just found that guy that was gonna buy that car for 25 grand and you're like, hey, let's save us all trouble. I'll sell you that car for the Kelley Blue Book price of $20,000. You get a cheaper deal, I get more money, everybody wins. And that's why if I was starting all over, the only way I would be finding deals is direct to the seller, direct to the homeowner, not buying through wholesalers who give me subpar deals, not going to the real estate market or Zillow where the crappiest deals live. No, I'm gonna find people who wanna sell their house and I'm gonna make them cash offers to buy that house. Here are the steps. Number 1, I'm gonna get a list. All right, it's really easy to get lists, guys. You gotta get over this step. All right, this hurdle right here is why most people overpay for their deals, and it's why most people fail as house flippers. Get a list. You go to PropStream, Property Radar, List Source, etc., etc., etc. Everybody's selling lists, guys. It's really easy to get. And what you do is you get a list of, let's say I would get a list of those 3 to 5 neighborhoods, and they would have all the houses, who owned the houses, the names, and the property address of the owners, all right? Because they might live somewhere else. They might own a house here, but live in San Diego, okay? So I get their address. And then I would take these lists further and I would do what's called skip tracing. Skip tracing is when you take that person, Angie, who lives out in San Diego, and the skip tracer finds her phone number. It finds her email address. Now I'm able to contact Angie directly and say, hey, I saw this house you have on 123 Main Street, and I'm a cash buyer in the area, would love to buy it. Sorry if this offends you, but would love to buy that house. You interested? But before I did the outbound marketing, I would set up what I call my home base. All right, I'm gonna set up a landing page or a website. It's gonna have a local phone number, local to the area that you live in, and it's gonna have a local address. So that way, Angie, who might live in San Diego, knows that her house here in Chattanooga is getting bought by a local investor, somebody who's not one of these virtual wholesalers who are just calling everybody on a list. Okay, now I'm gonna go do outbound marketing. If I'm broke, I'm cold calling everybody on the list. I'm hitting them up. I'm gonna text message. I'm gonna cold email. And if I have some money, I'm gonna send mail because it's way easier and it always works. And guys, there's all kinds of examples of postcards that you need to send. There's all kinds of companies that do it. Yellow Letter, they do it. Open Letter Marketing, great company. There's all kinds of them out there, guys. Just look it up online. All right, now, once I'm waiting for my marketing to work, right? I'm not gonna get a house the next day. I'm gonna have to go work those leads. Ultimately, I'm gonna go on appointments. I'm gonna get these houses under contract, and there's gonna be some waiting period. Not gonna happen overnight. So while I'm waiting and working, I'm gonna do a few things. Mostly is, I hate saying this, but build my team, okay? Not the cringy way that most people talk about it. There's a few vendors that I need to go make my dreams happen, all right? This is the 80-20 though. I'm not gonna meet all these guys. 3 guys. Number 1 is lenders, all right? Gonna need to get some money to buy these houses, okay? And as you're about to see, I don't actually need a lender until I have a deal because they're not gonna take you seriously until then. But I'm still out there making relationships, trying to meet some different people, specifically looking for what I call a private hard money lender. All right, these are not the corporate hard money lenders that you could type in online. They're all right too, but I want somebody that's local, that probably is a real estate investor themselves. They know the area really well, and I want to go build a personal relationship with them. I'm going to find those people at like the local RIA, the real estate investor meetups. Might find them on Facebook groups that are aligned with the local meetups, but that's where you're going to find those guys. And if you find them there, they're looking for you too. They're looking for people to lend to. And guys, like with lenders, I was freaked out about them, especially early on in my career. I know you guys are too. You feel like, oh my God, these guys that give me money. They make their money by giving you money. They need to find you to give you money, okay? So just go meet them. It's gonna be great. Number 2, you need contractors, okay? You don't need all the contractors. Don't need a whole bunch of contractors. You really need just 5. You need mechanical, you need an all-arounder. That's the meat and potatoes of your organization. These are the guys that do a little bit of everything. They do the floor, they do the paint, they do the cabinets, the carpentry, they take out the trash. They don't care. They'll do it all, okay? They're not like great at everything or anything, but they're good enough at all those things, especially on the median house prices, okay? Then you need MEP subs. That's HVAC, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. You need to have contractors who have licenses in those things, because if you have to pull permits, you're going to need them to have their separate permits, and you really want the experts to do these kind of things. And 5 is a roofer. Just usually all-arounders don't do the roofing as well. So you want to have a roofer who does specifically that. And a lot of these roofers who do nothing but roofs give you really good prices on roofs. Like literally you go call the billboard companies and they're hiring the people to do your roof for like 1/3 of the price that they're charging you, maybe even 1/4 of the price that they're charging you. You want to go directly to the source here. You can save a lot of money that way. Okay, Now here's the key with the lenders is if you find a good all-arounder, they'll introduce you to all those other guys. Okay, so really you only have to find the one. Where do I find them? Home Depot, baby. Going to Home Depot, I'm gonna go find the guys that are filling up carts and they look like they're working. It's that simple. I would find them, I would have a pipeline filled with those guys within a couple of days. And in your team, maybe you wanna get a realtor for the sale, all right? You show a realtor that you're gonna be flipping houses and they'll likely help you to confirm the after repair value if you're not as confident about your comps. But listen, those guys are gonna line up for you. You got a house to sell, they will be on the street trying to get your business. All right, so you don't gotta worry about them too much. Me personally, don't have to worry about her at all. It's my wife. She has to sell my stuff even if she hates me, sometimes. And step number 3.1, all right, still while I'm waiting to close this deal, I am gonna get my structure right, okay? Not an attorney, I'm not a CPA. This is just what I do is I like to set up two separate companies. One is the holdco that holds the property, and the other is the opco, the one that does the operations, like deal finding, like contracting. Okay, holdco hires the opco. This protects me from liability. Somebody wants to sue opco, they can't also get holdco, which owns the property that actually has value. All right, and vice versa. Also, it sets up some strategies that I can use for tax mitigation, legal tax mitigation. I've actually done a whole video on this thing, so I'm not going to get too in depth on that. Let's move on to step number 4. But the main thing with step number 3.1 is that it is what is going to allow me to start getting paid right away. As soon as I close on my first property, I'm going to start getting grocery money. Okay, and all that's in the video I just told you about. And we'll link it below, so stay focused right now. Step number 4. I'm going to now close the deal, actually go to the closing table, close the thing, and I'm going to manage these contractors maniacally to finish this project. First, before I did all that, I set up a solid scope of work. Okay, now I know setting up a scope of work, doing the sales to find these properties and close the deal, and recruiting and managing contractors seems a little bit overwhelming, all right? But we actually have a free school community where I teach people how to do exactly that. That's like the behind the scenes things. I answer every question every day. It's free for now. You should check it out. Link in the description here, guys. Okay, but that's it. Step number 4 is to execute the plan that we have put in place. And it is very simple. However, it is very hard to do. And that's why I have the school community. And one more thing is this is my first year, right? So I am going to do everything I can to give myself cushion to make as much profit as I can so that way I can start to grow my business. And so I'm going to DIY as much of that project as I possibly can to save money and to learn skills. Now, obviously, for me, I can DIY pretty much the whole thing. So I'm not going to do that because that would steal too much bandwidth from me and I couldn't be focused on growing my business, finding the next deal and such. But seriously, guys, even if you don't know jack about how to work on houses, things like landscaping, painting, changing out door hardware, watch a couple videos, LVP floors, like that's gonna save you lots of money. It's also gonna get you in the game. It's gonna earn some respect from contractors that you might hire, but it's also gonna teach you how to manage those guys better once you understand how the things go together. And it's your first deal, right? It's your first year. So that's gonna really line your pockets with extra profit for the mistakes that you are undoubtedly gonna make. I make a lot of mistakes all the time. So the more runway you can give yourself, the more head start, the better. So first year, I would definitely be doing a little bit of DIY. Step 5, gonna sell that thing. I'm gonna find a realtor who is a pit bull. Okay, like I said, these guys will line up to take your listing. They're just always trying to sniff out listings. Okay, but they're not all created equally. I want the pit bull that's gonna go in there and negotiate for me because most of these guys, they care more about what their realtor friends think about them than they do about getting you the best deal possible. Not only that, even though they're marketers, they mostly suck at marketing your property, okay? So what you need to do, gonna ruffle some feathers, I know. You need to make sure that the digital introduction is right, which comes down to 3 things. Pricing it right, okay? So you definitely don't want to overprice it, which you as the house flipper, that's what you're going to tend to want to do, especially if you did any DIY work. You're going to be like, oh God, it's worth way more. Like, I know that the house is only sold for $350,000 in that neighborhood, but mine's special. No, it's not. If the other houses were selling for $350,000, that's what it's going to sell for, okay? Not going to sell for $375,000 just because you put your personal touches on it. Okay, so price it right. But, okay, here's what the realtor is going to do to you. One is because all they want is your listing, is they might convince you that it would sell for $370,000 because once you sign the contract to list the thing with them, they already got you. So if it's sitting there at $370,000 and nobody wants to buy it, doesn't matter. They'll just lower it when you finally get tired of it, and then they'll finally get the sale. But the absolute worst filter you can put on a house is the filter of this house sat on the market longer than the other houses. All right. So if the days on market on average are 30 days and yours is sat there for 60 days, people are going to start wondering what the heck's wrong with this thing. They won't be able to get that out of their head because it's all about setting up the right filter that people see it through, which isn't step number 2 of the digital introduction, is that I want to have the best photos I can possibly get. It's not somebody taking iPhone photos of your house. You want a pro photographer, and you want to put those pictures in the right order. You want them to walk through the property digitally like you want them to see it because you're trying to put the right filter on the house. And the third thing, this is the one that all realtors suck at, is the copywriting, the listing description. Okay, it's not welcome to 123 Main Street. No, that sucks. Okay, it's copywriting. Copywriting is writing with the intention of getting people to do something, which for you, it's booking a showing and generally liking your property, to have the filter on the property where they can feel themselves in the property, and that feels like home. And finally, that house is going to get under contract, and then you want a real estate agent, or you're going to get offers, and you want a real estate agent who's going to go in there and fight for every inch. You see, most realtors think, well, I don't get to talk to the buyer, so I can't do anything about it anyway. This is what they offered. No, if you, as the realtor, sell the other agent, if you convince them of something about the house, now you have it in their head, and they, by proxy, go sell the buyer on something. They go convince the buyer of something if you actually got them to believe it. So yes, you can do the work, guys. You just have to actually be good. Step 6, as soon as that house gets listed, all right, I'm not going to sit and wait. I'm going to go right back to step 1. I'm going to go back to my list, and I'm going to start doing outbound marketing so I can get my next deal, which is step number 7. The day that house closes, number 1, I want to make sure that I have the second one ready to go. I close the day after in the ideal world. That means that before that house sold, I had already set up the next deal and I had the closing date set for the next day. Obviously, it doesn't have to be that perfect, but you get the idea. You're pushing to grow your business, but you don't want them to overlap right at first. That brings on some extra risk that I don't want to have right at the start because I'm trying to slowly grow and then fast grow. But anyway, until I have the following things. All right, number 1, is I want my living expenses in cash for 12 months. I want to have the amount of money I need escrowed for my next flip. That means like the down payment and whatever funds that I need to have in my bank account to make sure that I can cover that whole flip. Okay, still getting a loan, but I'm going to have down payment and other expenses set aside, like a contingency. Okay, and 3 is enough for a second flip. So I have my living expenses for a year, escrow for 1 flip, escrow for 2 flips. That second flip, that's the first rental that I'm going to hold. And that's when I start to explode my business. And I should be able to get there after 1 year of doing this thing. Okay, but the main thing that you get out of doing flips this way is you get experience, all right, and knowledge, what you're doing right here, trying to pick things up, times experience, actually going out there and taking the steps to do this thing. That's what equals skills. Once you have them, you'll be unstoppable. You'll be able to make money in any market condition. You'll be able to do it at will. You don't have to rely on customers. You don't have to rely on employees. You don't have to have a boss. You can do all of this as a solo operator, a one-man real estate operation. And that's what I teach in my free, for now, school community. Hit the link below, guys. Check it out. Every question, every day. And if you're not ready to take that step yet, check out this video right here. 7.5 hours of me teaching you everything I could think of that you might need to know to start your career.